welcome everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon for this webinar, which is a collaboration between Cumbria Tourism and Digital Tech Cumbria, which is a programme being run by Winning Moves. My name is Emily Whitehead, and I am going to host the first part of the webinar, really just to talk through ways in which you may reduce your reliance on OTAs, but more importantly, simply upgrade your customer experience and your customer journey so that you are making the most of your digital presence and feeling that you are driving your digital marketing as opposed to feeling maybe driven by it. So today's webinar is going to take the form of me doing some presentation for about half an hour, take you through some slides, and you certainly can take notes, etc. I understand that this is being recorded as well, so it might be possible to watch it back if you want to do it that way. And then I'm going to introduce you to Dan Visser. Some of you will be very familiar with him, Vice Chair of Cumbria Tourism, who is also going to really spend a few minutes talking through his own experience of digital marketing, OTAs, etc. And then we're going to open out to a Q&A session. Now, you can use, if all of you are looking at your screen, there is a black bar that should appear probably in the bottom half of your screen in the middle. You've got several options. You've got a chat box, you've got a Q&A option, and you can add your questions or queries in there, and we will curate those and have a look at those at the end in the Q&A session. But there will be an opportunity for you to raise your hand and ask your question live and verbally too, for those of you who'd like to do it that way. So just kind of save up your questions to the end and we will address them as best we can. Okay, so today I'm going to really take you through, first of all, a few stats, because sometimes stats are really interesting, not because they tell us everything and not because they're perfect, but because it kind of gives us a little bit of a foundation on which the conversation or the webinar is happening. I want to talk you through a few of the basics and getting those right. For any of you who've seen any of my other webinars, I tend to really like to focus in on basics. Even for those of you who feel really strongly about your brand and your voice and your story, it's always worth, especially in this ever-changing landscape, to make sure that you have got that good and clear and you're communicating it well with your customer base. We're going to look at defining your customer journey, so really taking some time to think about how your customer sector is finding you, what they need from you, what experiences they're looking for, and how and where you're delivering those experiences, and how you're helping to drive that journey through to your end point. Some pointers about upgrading your digital footprint. So again, making sure that you have ticked as many of the digital tick boxes that you need to in your business to really help you be seen, but also to be in control of your messaging and stories out there. Really talking about the story element again and creating some valuable content, so ways in which you might like to do that. For some of you, these might be reminders. For some of you, it might be something new. We can discuss that in detail. And then obviously an introduction from Dan Visser, as I've already said. He is the Sales and Marketing Director at Langdale Estate, as well as a Director and Vice Chair of Cumbria Tourism. So we'll do a Q&A at the end. So I wanted to just take you through some little stats that I have found various sources online that really just gives an indication of how your customers might be operating in that digital sphere when they are thinking about booking or making a visit to Cumbria. 46% of those surveyed said they felt booking through an OTA was cheaper than going direct. So that was an interesting perspective that I wanted to add, because it might be something to be aware of when you're managing how you are taking bookings through OTAs and possibly direct as well. Google's Near Me function grew by 150% in 2019, which were the latest stats. And that is those people who are saying cafe near me, small family attraction near me, hotel near me. And the data also shows that people are using their mobile phones to make last minute decisions a lot more than perhaps they ever did before. and how you really show up on that kind of near me search. 60% of consumers were influenced by consumer generated content. So that is photos, content that their friends have shared or other people have shared, compared to 19% influenced by professional brand imagery. So really ways in which to get your visitor or your customer sector involved in your social media, involved in conversations with your business. 84% of millennials and 73% of non-millennials are likely or very likely to make a booking based on someone else's holiday photos and social media update. This won't come as a surprise to most of you, but it was kind of a high stat, I thought, to really help you understand how people's customer journeys are evolving as they use different platforms. 40% of UK millennial travellers say they consider how Instagrammable a location is when they're planning a trip. Okay, so it wasn't my first thought when I'm booking somewhere, but I guess that helps us understand the importance of really making sure our visuals are right and we are helping display an experience visually, video, whatever way you use it on your website and your social channels. 97% of millennials share photos on social media while traveling. I'm sure that isn't a surprise. How many selfies can we take? But again, it's part of that customer journey that might help influence their friends to visit in the future. And 40% of travellers post social content or attraction reviews when they return home. And again, that was an interesting stat from my point of view, that yes, it's TripAdvisor, but it's also attraction reviews or just adding comments on social media as well, and how you can enhance that to help maybe build customer relations so that visitors who may travel to you through an OTA in the first instance may repeat visit directly next time. So defining basics then. So for me, the basics are defining brand in the first instance. For any of you who are smaller businesses, you might feel that you don't have a defined brand, or that you have it in your head, and that can sometimes be perfectly adequate. But it's really important to think about your voice values, your vocab, if you like, the 3 V's, or the words that you're using around your brand, because it's ever more important that that is crystal clear to anybody who's searching on the internet for your kind of attraction, accommodation, or place. Because the data shows us that hearing stories, understanding the values of a business, understanding what's important to them and the experiences that you will have is what helps people make a decision. Surprisingly, and data shows again and again, that people will pay more for a perceived experience that might be something that they think that they're ahead of their friends in, or something that is going to enhance their life or enrich their experience, or give them time to relax, switch off, or whatever kind of customer sector that you are attracting. So it's really important then that the voice that you have in your brand, which may well for small businesses simply be the voice of the owners, you know, warm and friendly, cool and contemporary, whatever that is, it's important to note it down and to keep that consistency across all your channels so that people become familiar with your brand. They feel that they are more connected with your brand. And then when they see your brand in different touch points, whether that's on social media, they see a video, they notice you sent them an email, they notice an advert somewhere, that they feel more connected with the kinds of content they've seen before and are more likely to want to come and book and find out more about your proposition. It's also important to think about your story. So storytelling for me is key in marketing. And what does that mean? That really means sharing much more of your business than just what it is. So we can all have, you know, 4-star accommodation, maybe you can have, you know, a 4-poster bed, maybe you do serve the best breakfast in Cumbria, but actually telling the story around that, you know, how you source products, why the business was set up, what the value system is in that business, the story of the landscape around your place, the story of your visitor journey when they visit your attraction. These are the kind of important ways in which to create content, but also to make those really human connections with your audience. Thinking too about profiling your key customers. So customer base is something you will know your customers inside out, I'm sure. You will absolutely feel sure about the kinds of customers who might visit you in the summer holidays compared to the kinds of customers who visit you in the autumn. You might feel really confident about where they come from, what they like to do in terms of activities, what they appreciate in the services that you offer. But have another look. Have a look at not only your core customer base, but also your emerging or niche customer bases. Maybe you've got a few customers that are high value for you or emerging as a new kind of customer. Maybe you're having to do that because of current guidelines and restrictions. So maybe you're feeling like, actually, this summer we've started to attract something slightly different, and we'd like to expand on that and move on that. So it's always worth really keeping a good eye on that customer base and never assuming anything, because their needs are changing, what is driving them is changing all the time, and also who is visiting might change. So given our current situation, if you, for example, have traditionally relied on retirees to visit you in the autumn, then maybe that may change. And have you thought about how you can create a proposition for a different group, or reassure that group to take the risk and visit? So identifying needs and drivers is really important. And I've already mentioned the word experience. It's really important when you're selling anything is that you're selling the experience, not just the stuff. So any content that you're creating, any connections that you're making, or anything that you're promoting needs to be really very much based on the experience somebody will have, as opposed to what they will actually do. So yes, a comfortable bed, people will assume luxury sometimes. They will assume that the bedding's great. They will assume that the loos will be clean. They will assume that the place will be fun, maybe. But they would need to define the experience that they're going to have in your place. And of course, that helps you perhaps differentiate compared to the competition down the road. So I think it's important to focus in on experience always and that customer journey. I wanted to really, this is a simplified version of a customer journey, and you can find lots and lots of much more complex ones on the internet. But I like this kind of circular. I'm into circles, and I think it's important for us to understand how the customer journey is self-perpetuating, and in the future, even if not now, might in time reduce your OTA reliance, or it might just allow you to build stronger relationships so that you're able to roll out special offers, create gold customers, VIP visitors for the future, etc., to give you that additional resilience moving forward in your business. So kind of imagine that somebody's visit or somebody's stay starts with that dreaming phase. So this might be around social media, friends' recommendations, images and videos. We've already talked about in the stats how important that is to people. It could be even email marketing, you know, something that's been forwarded by a friend, or even some they are subscribers themselves. You know, they've come across you and subscribed, but they've not yet stayed or visited. So think about where your business sits in that phase of the customer journey. What's your business providing in terms of content and in terms of connection points or potential connection points at that phase of somebody's journey? And of course, then they move on to browsing. So they're beginning to look in a little bit more detail. They've got a weekend free. They've noticed, you know, there's a sunny day coming up. So yeah, that's when they're going to start engaging with Google. They may go straight direct to your business if they've had a recommendation, but likely they're going to start searching on Google, and they're going to come across OTAs at that point. And they're going to look at recommendations and review sites at this point, and they're going to check out social media. So, you know, I don't have the stat, but I've seen the stat that the number of people who will find you or potentially find you on Google, who will search then on all your platforms to check, okay, you know, are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? What are they saying? On TripAdvisor, do they have any Google reviews? They will kind of do a good little search to nail down, are you really the place that they want to visit? obviously this moves on to booking. And again, all of you will, I'm sure, spend lots of time on thinking about ways in which visitors might come and book. And more so than ever before, especially for attractions, booking ahead is essential. You know, on the door bookings is less likely given that we have to control numbers and crowding. So again, what is influencing booking? It could be email marketing. There's about a 20% uplift on bookings and buying from email marketing emails, especially those with offers or incentives. Reviews, guarantees. Again, in our current climate, COVID guarantees or guarantees about easy cancellation or moving tickets or moving trips or stays is important, but may well be specifically very important to your key customer bases. So again, are those obvious? Are those clear? And I always think with booking as well that it's important to think about that person booking at 3 o'clock in the morning, because there will be insomniacs out there doing that. Can they make that booking without any input from you whatsoever? Have you answered all their questions? Have you reassured them? Have they found all the information that they need? And is that booking process really, really clear? And for any of you who are looking to reduce your OTA reliance, then looking at your own booking systems, does it compare well? Because people are very used to Booking.com, Expedia, it's a simple process. They might feel very familiar with those platforms. So you really need to be able to reassure people that it's as easy and as reassuring to perform that on your website or wherever your booking portal is. Obviously then the next 2 phases of the customer journey are very interlinked. So they're enjoying their experience with you. They've come up to Cumbria or down to Cumbria or across to Cumbria, and they have, you know, they're experiencing amazing customer service from you. Maybe you've got an app in your hotel or in your visitor attraction that helps them, guide them round. They can order stuff, maybe they can get room service. All that experience is so important, but immediately we know from those stats they're already on social media too. So they're sharing pictures of the amazing bedroom or the amazing view or the opportunity to walk from the door or whatever is important to them. And that Instagrammable moments. So just thinking about that customer journey all the time at the forefront of everything that you do. So I've talked already a little bit about upgrading your digital footprint. What I mean by that is frankly anywhere on internet, as they say, where your business can be found. So Google, clearly, I am talking about Google because I think it's still got about a 94 to 95% of all market share of browsers. So it's important that you are Google friendly. So is your Google My Business right and up to date? Have you enabled message me on your Google My Business so that people can contact? Have you encouraged previous visitors to write a Google review? Because don't forget, Google love it when you use Google products. So if you are encouraging people to review, and as a review site, it's one of the fastest growing across all the review platforms, certainly in the tourism industry. If any of you are using Google My Business, then when you go into your admin area, you can find a little link that you could maybe add into an email marketing email. You could add into a signature, a digital signature on your email, just to encourage people to do that, for any of you who haven't got many Google reviews yet. Think too about optimizing your review profiles themselves. So again, checking out what customer images have been put up there, whether you've got the latest and most up-to-date, including any COVID-friendly is quite wrong, isn't it? You don't want to be COVID-friendly, you want to be COVID-secure. But any of your COVID-secure pieces of information, again, are they optimized across all the platforms? So images of perspex screens or images of guidelines or images of a one-way system might be important. It might be the bit it might be the barrier to booking for some people if they're not sure that you're doing things in the latest or most up-to-date way. It's so important to update and optimize your OTA listing. Obviously, great photographs, we know this. great use of words, making sure that you have created a listing that answers the experience somebody's looking for, as well as the fact that it might be 4-star or the fact that it might be well rated. Those things are so important, but it's also the experience and using imagery to create that experience if they're going to find you on your OTA listings. Your website and your search engine optimization, your SEO, is also vital. And again, some of you may be very hot on this and you may update this not too regularly because you'll confuse things, but certainly you're doing this in a strategic way. But it's also important too to make sure that you've optimized new pages on your website. Most tourism businesses now may have a COVID page, they might have guideline pages, they may have new encouraging pages. Some of you may have pivoted, you may be offering cream teas in a way you didn't before, or takeaway service that you haven't before. Again, if you imagine that stat of people Googling near me, then if they're in a place, in a location in Cumbria, and they're looking for that takeaway service or that last minute cream tea booking because it's raining, I'm sure it never rains in Cumbria, but if it's raining, then where do you, can Google find you? Has that website and that web page been optimized? Social media, vital, again, to continue that storytelling and to continue that optimized use of words and experiences. So if you are speaking directly to your core customer base because your place is the most relaxing, luxurious place to be, or that you use words like retreat or family fun, or whatever is important in your business, make sure that that is perpetuated throughout your social media, and that your bios and about sections are all optimized using the same language. I know that some of you have a love-hate relationship with email marketing. Quite often when I mention this to clients, they either hide their head and say, do I have to? I don't know what to say. Or I speak to clients who have it all set up, but maybe have lost confidence to do it regularly. Email marketing is vital, I think, for any tourism business, because social media, especially this week and at times when guidelines change, is so busy and so overwhelming that actually receiving a gorgeous email from you, encouraging them, reassuring them, taking them on a journey, sharing another chapter of your story can be the real insight and delight that they're looking for actually in their life. So don't ever underestimate the power of email marketing, not to mention that having a list of subscribers in your business is an asset. Really having a huge fan base on social media, lovely as it is, isn't yours to keep. It is in fact Mark Zuckerberg's or all the other owners. So it's worth noting that if, God forbid, you had to give some last minute information, or something much more positive, and you've got something exciting to share, talking and whispering into the ear of your already subscribed customers is so much more powerful. And also, of course, use your networks and campaigns. So anything like the hashtag Book Direct campaign, getting involved in anything that Cumbria Tourism might be doing, it's important to hop onto those and stay connected. I'm going to go through this.
Before you move on, I've just had a question from Dennis. So he's asked, for a small B&B, which review platform would you prioritize? For example, Google, TripAdvisor, or Facebook?
So say that again, Lynn, sorry.
Sorry, for a small B&B, which review platform would you prioritize? For example, Google, TripAdvisor, or Facebook?
Well, ideally, you want to be gaining reviews on all those platforms, because depending on your customer base, it's important to think about your customer base, think about where they are going to look first. So if, for example, your customers are used to using TripAdvisor and you know that you get a lot of traffic through TripAdvisor, then keeping that up to date and regular is good. From a Google point of view, they like to see their Google reviews being used and activated a lot because it's a Google product, and that might help influence that 3D image that you want Google to have of your business as a high quality, well optimized, up-to-date business in all areas. But of course, if you have a customer base that you know are super duper Facebook users, then again, you might feel that if you only have the energy to prioritize one review site and Facebook is it for your customer base, then that would be the choice. We maybe can visit that and see what Dan's thoughts are on that at the end. But just talking about, and I hope that helps, we can recover that in a minute. But I don't want to spend too much time on this particular slide because I don't want to run over and get into the Q&A session. But think about these Google products in your business. So optimizing your Google My Business, making sure that your map is up to date, your PIN is absolutely correct. If you're going to use a 360 virtual tour in your business, then maybe Google 360 is the one to choose because it is a Google product and your little yellow person can go into your place. Use Google Trends and Analytics to really find out how people are operating when they get into your website, or the kinds of trends and things that people are looking for. So again, experience words or experiential words are so important. Relaxation, fun-filled, outdoors, retreats, all those kinds of words are being used a lot more than just luxury or just 4-star. Not that those are unimportant, obviously. Google Console is a Google product that will help you understand how your website is functioning, broken links, speed, that kind of thing. Google Reviews, and obviously Google Ads for those of you who feel ready for that part of your marketing journey. So content then, telling your story every day, I've talked about throughout this part of the webinar. Think about key chapters in your story if you're struggling with it. Think about the key protagonists or the key characters. So it could be you as the owners, it could be the family dog on the farm B&B. I regularly tell a gorgeous story of a B&B that I've worked with over the years, and they have it's a working organic farm. They have the B&B and they have a little venue area, and they had a new puppy, and it was a new sheepdog puppy, and they told that story for weeks and weeks, and it was sheepdog lesson number 1 right through to about 100 and something, and it was all the comedy pictures of the sheepdog chewing the welly, getting it wrong, frightened of the chickens, but it was just a fantastic way of telling stories and helping customers getting to know what it's like to be on that farm and have that experience. What is the purpose of your content too? So are you educating them about a kind of unknown, gorgeous corner of Cumbria that nobody else knows about? Or are you entertaining them to keep their spirits high and to encourage them to come and visit you? Are you just selling a particular package that is going to help your bottom line through autumn, winter, or something new and special? So think about always what the outcome that you want from that piece of content is, so that you can help guide them along that customer journey while not being too selly all the time. I apologize if you can hear my terrier. Consider your content variety and how you produce it too. So, and I'm going to go straight on to the long lasting and short-lived content too. So it's really about thinking about the variety and your customers and what they want. So if you've got millennials and Instagrammers, then making sure that your Instagram stories or reels are up to date might be vital to help people understand what life is like at your place, a behind the scenes look, what it's like to experience one particular gorgeous ice cream or facial or walk. But again, if you have got serious Cumbrian walkers who are looking to do proper nature spotting, then writing blogs regularly is good long-lasting content. If you have done an article about, and I spoke to somebody yesterday about red squirrels, if you've done an article or a blog post about finding red squirrels in Cumbria, that content stays on the internet for a very long time, and it can help you drive traffic back to your business by providing value content. But most importantly, clear planning is important. You know, I have a great big whiteboard on my office wall, and that has a plan on for key themes that I want to talk about, key high points and points in the year that need to be built up to, and also fun last minute stuff to remind me on days when I'm kind of, you know, we're all pedaling hard or feeling stressed, where I think, oh, actually, that would be a really lovely Instagram story moment to give you inspiration and creativity. It's vital. So, ideas to take away before we head to the Q&A, and I realise I've rattled through this. Frankly, I could talk about this subject for a day, and I certainly have done whole days on this kind of thing, but I think it's given you lots of insight, hopefully, into all the different areas to be thinking about and working on. So check that you're telling a consistent story across your platforms. Help people to fully immerse themselves in your business, what it feels like to be there, what it smells like, what the experience is, who the key people are in your business, how they're going to be welcomed, so that they can really imagine what it's going to be like to visit or stay at your place. Keep your customer journey front of mind always. So again, always be perfecting that customer journey. And if you had customers that arrived to you the first time through OTAs, great, you've got customers, you've got a bed night, you've got footfall, but maybe working on then converting them to be direct customers of your future. Stay ahead of your visitors' needs. So this has never been more important to now. I've already mentioned, if you are relying on the retiree market, for example, the reassurance and confidence they might need now might be very specific, and it might be something you have to work on now. Upgrade how you connect with your customers directly. So again, if you have dabbled with email marketing, maybe you've done email marketing for a while, either do it consistently or start to do it in a more sophisticated way. So targeting customers, for example, using a platform like MailChimp, you can split out your customer list. And, you know, those people who have shown an interest in this in a previous email, you can then follow that up with a more in-depth email, for example. You can really get quite sophisticated. Even in a small business, you can have access to all that kind of software. Ensure you're optimizing your OTA accounts and the way that you use them, and make sure that your website and Google are best friends, obviously. So I hope that's been useful. Now we're going to hear from Dan Visser. As I've said already, Sales and Marketing Director at the Langdale Estate and Director and Vice Chair of Cumbria Tourism, about his experiences, and then we'll get on to the chat. Over to you, Dan, if that's okay.
Of course it is. Thank you very much, Emily. Unsurprisingly, I'm going to say very, very quickly, that's exactly what we did on our journey from becoming a relative novice in the world of promoting our business online to where we are now. But rather than go into the details of the detail of what we did, which is essentially everything Emily said, just to get a little bit of how that journey looked. In 2008, at Langdale, we did about £400,000 online, and made a decision that we were going to move to 100% online. So we took about £160,000 of print advertising spend. God knows what we spent on producing brochures. It was frightening. It was a horrible cost. If you remember those brochures where you actually had a little plastic thing and a CD in them that you used to print yourselves, and then, yeah, how classy was that? And then print it and put it in the brochure and send it off. The last time I had a laptop that actually took a CD was probably at least 7 years ago. So we decided to go down this journey of being 100% online. First of all, we had to get some colleagues to come with us on this journey. Some of my colleagues decided not to come on that journey with us, which was unfortunate. Some of them fought against it, but the vast majority came along with us. And we've got to a point now where we do about £3 million online, from sort of 400,000 12 years ago. So very quickly we decided to invest in our own website, our own content, email and social, all of the things we've just talked about. We decided to get in bed with and work very closely with OTAs. They were just taking more and more market share. So the thing is to get into bed with them. We were at a point where 100% digital, huge success, but about 5-6 years ago, 30% of all our rooms business was through online travel agents. And we were just started trying to think, right, how do we get this back and how do we win all that business back? And we had an advanced purchase rate, which I remember very clearly, which we offered on our website to all our direct customers, and we did not offer to Booking.com, who were the vast majority of that 30%. I got hauled into their office in Manchester one day and they said, right, you need to, by the end of play today, you either give us that advanced purchase rate or we're going to remove you from the website. So I said, yeah, come on, you're pulling my bluff. What's happening? I clearly couldn't do without 30% of all my rooms business and still keep my job. So I had to give them the advanced purchase rate or put it behind a closed user group. And that was a real wake up call to us. And our real drive to drive all of that business direct, to win all that back, started in earnest at that point. And we're now down to less than 8% through OTAs for Langdale Hotel and 100% direct for our Brimstone Hotel. And that literally has just been a team effort, getting all of our sales marketing team behind the effort. Being quite cute with the way we manage OTAs, and I'm sure this will come out in the Q&A around how you do that through rate parity or lack of it and all this kind of stuff. But like I said at the beginning, doing all of the things has just mentioned. A couple of great examples: Instagram inspiration. People love an Instagram inspiration. We've got a whole marketing campaign that went on around those Instagram moments that are the end of a jetty, looking out of a tent, all those things that are real cliche. We went under a waterfall. We went and collected the very best of those in our area, and we've had massive engagement because of that. Just before we go to the Q&A, review platforms. The review platform that works best for you is not necessarily the one where you get the best reviews, but it's where you get the best engagement. The best engagement in reviews for us is emailing every single guest when they leave the hotel with a survey to say, what did you like? What didn't you like? What could we have done better? And that is by far and away our best form of engagement with reviews, because those reviews come in directly back to us. Anything that was an issue for their stay, I know immediately if they haven't told me during the stay, and I can fix it. If I have to go searching other review platforms to find out that, then that doesn't help. Reviews on public sites are obviously a great way of promoting your business, and people will make their decisions based on that. But you can also win back business that you may have lost in the future. If a guest had an issue that wasn't dealt with during their stay that you find out about very quickly, fix, then you can win back guests that you may have lost otherwise. So direct reviews back to you are also, along with those other platforms, really important. And if you want to get really geeky about it, just go and Google the Net Promoter Score, which is a way of constructing your surveys into categorizing people to would they promote you, would they maybe promote you, or would they not promote you, and then you can gauge your interaction with them and your email marketing, your segmentation around what they've put in their surveys. But if you have the time, even better than that, just go and speak to your guests. Go and talk to them directly through email, through your social content, or whatever channels you choose to use. That's really quick one from me, unless there's anything else, Emily, you particularly want me to cover before we can open up to people's questions.
No, I think that was super valuable, and it's really useful to hear that experience, I'm sure. No, let's go to questions, I think. Lynn, shall I stop share? Is that the best thing, Lynn?
Yes, please. And if everyone just gives me a moment, I'll promote you all to panelists. So you have the option to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. So please do.
So there's a question about some of the Chinese, Asian, Australian platforms.
Yeah.
I talk a little bit there, although it's not a significant part of our business, mainly down to location. It is, when that business is travelling, in certain locations, particularly Bowness, Windermere, Ambleside, Grasmere and others, a disproportionately high number of visitors for what is in total in Cumbria and Lake District still less than, total non-domestic is still less than 15% of all our business. However, it is very important in certain areas. Those specific platforms can be hard to access, but don't forget that your existing platforms like Booking.com, Expedia do have much wider distribution. When you list with your main OTA, there are essentially only two main OTAs in the Europe, UK and America, and they are constantly forging links with other OTAs in other parts of the country, particularly in China. So there are routes that way. So the OTAs that we already work with and the easy wins and the easy ones to link with, have a look at where they distribute and what the options are. Also, if you use Booking.com, they actually have a tool now where you can pay a slightly different commission rate to actively target and appear higher in search in certain countries, and that includes Asia, Japan, Australia, and other countries. And that's a tool, yes, you've got to pay a bit of commission, but the cost of acquisition for those countries is generally very high with language barriers, listing on multiple OTAs and so on. So it could be a bit of extra commission that you're quite happy to pay to initially access that market. So that's well worth looking at.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. So I think that I think we've answered the questions that are in the chat box. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask? If you want to unmute yourselves, and if you've got something that you would like to ask of us.
Emily, hi. I know I'm part of the Digital Tech Cumbria team, but I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned right at the beginning about the near me searches that people do. And it got me thinking, is there a central place where you can register? Because there's obviously a variety of different apps that are out there, and of course all the browsers and what have you. Are you aware if there's a central place to register for that type of application?
I'm not. I mean, the main focus I was thinking about is just making sure that your Google My Business profile is up to date. So that was my main driver. So that includes things like, obviously, the map, and obviously the way that you are described as well. So interestingly, I was looking for a takeaway near a cricket match that I was at. We finished late. Was there a takeaway we could pick up? And it was a new location. And in fact, I knew there was a takeaway nearby, but it wasn't listed when I did that near me when I was online on my mobile. And it was because they were listed as a restaurant that I knew they did takeaway, but because it wasn't part of their optimized wording and their listing on Google My Business, it didn't come up. And so I felt immediately that they were obviously losing business. I knew differently and was able to go and visit them anyway and just put it into the map. But actually from somebody who didn't know an area or didn't know about them, they wouldn't have known. So I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Dan.
I think it's really important wherever time allows to look at all the channels where you appear. You mentioned right at the beginning, and it's something to Google yourself, go and look at where you appear. Can you find yourself where you think your guest might be looking for you? And where you do appear and you do find yourself, then is your presence appropriate? And your presence needs to be appropriate for whatever market that is, and whatever your market segment is finding you there. You may not always use good quality images and fantastic text, but it might not always be the same, depending on which channel you're looking at. But yeah, put yourself in your guest shoes and do that whole guest journey on a regular basis through various different ways of finding you.
And
Dan,
and sorry, I was going to
just
go
go ahead. No, I was just going to. It's not related directly to hospitality businesses, but just an example of that. We've been at Cumbria Tourism getting a lot of calls recently from people applying for jobs that we're not advertising to the best of our knowledge. And after a lot of Googling ourselves, I found out that LinkedIn is tying jobs boards with positions based in Cumbria and putting them as Cumbria Tourism, which is why people are thinking they're applying for a cleaning job or a housekeeper job with CT. It's just one example of we were just answering the phone going, sorry, we don't have any jobs available. People getting confused, a little bit annoyed with us because they thought we were advertising positions. But it's just an example of where your business, that was an error in that's how LinkedIn pulls through job listings. But just Googling your business name every so often throws up lots of random things. I do quite a bit of sort of blog marketing, influencer marketing for CT, and there's a lot of bloggers who will do the top 10 places to visit in the Lake District, and they'll just Google and they'll bring in B&Bs or attractions and stick it in their blog quite often without telling the business, and they may not be marketing you in the best possible way. So Googling yourself regularly, it's a bit self-indulgent to start with, but it's definitely worth doing.
very good point, John.
Can I just add to that? When you Google yourself, because if you list with online travel agents, obviously they are permitted to bid on your brand, so they will appear in the paid ads and probably right below your own organic listing on search engines. But then don't forget to click through to the OTA, look at rates, look at descriptions, look at images, look at how you appear there, then do the same journey on your website. And is the journey on your website better? When I was preparing for this, rate parity is pretty easy these days because everything's automated through your PMS, or it should be. But I looked at a hotel, a B&B in Bowness earlier, around the corner from me. Their lowest rate appeared first on booking.com, and on their website, the highest rate appeared first. The rest of their rates were below the fold on their page. So immediately, booking.com appeared cheaper. Now, no matter how loyal you are, price is key. So most people would have just booked on booking.com. All they had to do was reorder their rates, so the cheapest one came up first, and they wouldn't have lost any of that business. So just little tiny little things like that. By doing those journeys, you can see which, put yourself in the shoes of a customer, do the journey through the OTA, do the journey through your website, and then just think, if you were booking a holiday elsewhere, what would you do?
Yeah, I think it's really important to put your own personal self into it. It might be useful too, I don't know whether you do this, Dan, is to use the incognito option on your Google so that you have avoided any previous caching or any previous cookies, because obviously for all of us, we search ourselves or we search certain types of things regularly. And so what you want is a completely cold look at your business, as opposed to something that's already kind of skewed by previous searches. Another idea that might be quite useful for those of you who are searching using keywords and phrases as opposed to directly looking at your business, and trying to imagine the journey right from that kind of browsing, dreaming stage, if you like, is to look at related searches at the bottom of the first page of Google results. So when Google brings up the results, if you have put in luxury B&B in Windermere, because that's what you feel the most appropriate description of what people were looking for in your business, and you're not there, or you may be there, or you may only be there as a listing on booking.com, but you're not there organically, then search to the bottom of that page and it's got related searches, and it gives you an insight into other words and phrases that users use that you may not, because of course we all put our own personal slant on what words we think they should be searching for, or we think they are, but there might be other words and phrases or different ways of putting in that you hadn't thought of. So it's worth using that as a bit of a free tool. It can take you down a rabbit hole, but it might be useful.
Also, absolutely right. And it's worth looking at those more specific search terms, which might generate a lot less traffic, but are far more likely to convert. One of the things we did way back in the day when search engine optimization was really easy, we came up first on Google for 4-star hotel for about 3 years. Wonderful. It made us feel great, and it made us feel really important and good at what we did. But because there was no geographical context to it, our conversion rate was really, really low. We used to like boasting about it all the time, so our egos were nice. But the actual conversion rate, because there was no geographical context to it whatsoever, our conversion rate was really, really low. So we would have been far better off. We did all right, but we would have been actually better off looking at some very, very specific geographically relevant terms where our conversion would have been a lot higher.
Yeah, good point. And again, it is that when you're thinking about SEO, when you're thinking about search terms, it's getting that balance between exactly what you are, so that people, if they're looking for a hotel in a particular town or village or location, then you need to clearly be listed there, but also to mix that in with the slightly more experiential or niche things that only you are offering. So if that is a particular kind of spa treatment, or a particular kind of, you can see a particular kind of bird from, you know, from where you are, or a particular kind of walk, whatever it is, it's important that you have that mix in there. I don't know if there are any other questions coming up. Anybody want to turn off their, or turn on their mic rather? No? Maybe that means we've answered them all, Dan.
I hope so.
Emily, I'll ask you a question. So I've got the Lake District Hub, and I work with a number of kind of smaller hoteliers and B&B businesses. And one of the challenges that they find is operating in the paid media space, partly because obviously the cost per click is relatively high and conversion rates net back at, say, 2%, depending on the business. So obviously, from a cost per acquisition perspective, it becomes quite expensive for them to operate in that space, because when you actually net back what margins they make off it, it becomes nigh on impossible to be able to kind of compete against the likes of Booking.com and the other OTAs. What would your advice be to them in that instance?
You want to go first, Dan?
So, hi, Gareth. There's a couple of things here. So there's two. There's to compete on brand. If you don't list with too many OTAs, because of course their bidding is pretty much automated based on who lists with them. So you will always have that brand paid for from your OTA. So listing on your own brand should be relatively cheap, because the competition isn't that big unless you list with lots and lots of OTAs. Your bidding on your own brand will always be a lot cheaper than paying commission. So it might seem counterintuitive to bid on your own brand when you appear right next to it, but there will be some stats that say 30% of people, or whatever it is, always bid on the top two, whether they're paid or not. So bidding on your own brand should be something, although it's counterintuitive, you should do. And then you're absolutely right. Those generic Lake District or town or geographical specific search terms are very, very expensive. So it's about spending some time looking at the equivalent of a long tail search in organic, to find some search terms which people aren't bidding on that much, and trying them to see what converts. And again, looking at that ROI, and be willing to change it on a regular basis. Now, I realize that's quite time intensive, certainly to get set up, but once it's moving, and once you're able to be reasonably agile with your budget, then it can be that you can bring that spend down if you want to reduce spend, or increase your return, which should be the way you do it really, by looking at some of those slightly more niche terms to bid on.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
is that helpful, Gareth? Thank you for asking that question. I think some of those niche terms, but also, I don't know what your feeling is, Dan, for those businesses who are maybe new to what they're doing, quite small, don't feel that they have like a Google ad budget. What would your advice be around ad spend? Would you focus just on some Facebook, or would you rely a little bit more on OTA until your turnover allowed more spend? Because I have also seen, obviously, businesses getting a little bit swamped by Google ads and spending money that they didn't want to.
Google ads are relatively complex if to do. And there are some quite cost-effective partners out there. Obviously, we've met Gareth already, and so it's worth, if that's where you want to go, it's probably worth getting some help if you're not quite confident there. Facebook and other platforms are much more intuitive because they are very much designed for small businesses, even individuals starting to promote. So those social platforms are a few years behind Google in terms of their maturity, and are much more intuitive to anybody having a go at it. Also, the required spend is generally a lot lower, so your risk is a lot lower. So I would suggest, if you're not really sure, get some help with search in terms of paid search, PPC, but certainly have a go at social platforms yourself, and spread your budget across it all. Have a go at it all, see what works. You don't know if it's going to work until you try it. You don't know that it's going to work until you've tried it and it doesn't work. And your spend doesn't have to be big. But there's no point assuming something's not going to work if you don't actually know it's not going to work, because it might be the channel that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all, I'd also like to add there as well, that doing the basics and making sure that your customer journey is right, the experience of visiting your website, if that is the landing space that you're driving people to, or your booking place, is fantastic organically and on its own before you spend any money driving traffic to it. Because what you don't want to do is to jump to the paid advertising in whatever form, and for visitors to land where you are and not get the smooth journey and experience they're hoping for. And then you've paid for somebody to bounce away quite quickly. Any other questions, anybody?
Just another question from me, really, if that's okay. It's more of, would you advise this strategy for some of the people on here in kind of the wider hospitality industry? Is obviously Facebook, you're right, Dan, you know, it is an easier platform to work, but we're driving all these people to the website, and effectively, if we can't sign them up through email, as an example, there's no way of retargeting them. Now, it's a bit more complex, and it involves web developers, etc. But a cheaper way to obviously retarget them through paid media is using retargeting. So setting up the relevant tracking information and retargeting with ads to be able to pull them back to the website. It's a much more cost-effective way if you've already driven them through whichever method you've got them there in the first instance. So it's a way of obviously trying to keep your brand fresh within their mind. Yeah,
cross-platform marketing obviously has a really important function in a lot of what we do. But going back to that customer journey, just think, for me, I engage with some brands on social only. I only want to engage with them on social. When they try and drive me across to their website, I get turned off, because I'm following them on social because I want them in my social feed, not in my email. So there are ways to convert in Facebook. You can have the booking tool directly within Facebook. That doesn't really, I don't know anybody where that works, but you can have that within there, or you can really engage with people. So the cross-platform element to it definitely works. And the remarketing, again, a bit like social, the remarketing platforms are getting easier to use and are more intuitive. So well worth a go. But there, another thing, if you don't try it, you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So definitely recommend trying retargeting. We've tried it a number of times here, and it's never worked. Whichever way we've done it, it's never worked for us. But I would still try it again in a couple of years' time, because it might work next time, and it doesn't cost much to give it a go, and I could be missing out. So it's definitely worth a go, but I wouldn't be too concerned if it didn't work, because it might be that your social following want to follow you on social, your email following want to follow you by email, and that's their chosen. You know, they might want to have the option for people to have alerts on your website. You know, some people will and other people will choose to have our alerts on via our website. So it's kind of mixing it up to again, going back to doing what the customer wants to do, but make sure you've given the customer every single opportunity there is to engage with you.
Thanks, Gareth. I hope that's answered your question. Are there any other questions before we close this webinar? No? And don't forget, you can use the chat box if you want to. Well, I think probably that brings this webinar to a close. Thank you, Dan, for all your brilliant input, and thank you for everybody for attending today and taking the time to do so. I'm sure if there are any follow-up questions, then you can look at Digital Tech Cumbria as a programme. You might want to access some one-to-one support if you want to dig into some of what we've talked about today, or maybe other wider issues in your business. Then there are coaches available to help you do that. You can also turn to Cumbria Tourism, who will also have a whole suite of bits of information and support that's there for the tourism industry in your location. So please use both those opportunities to follow up on this after today. Thank you very much for attending.